Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here to talk to you about an inexpensive way to have a whole lot of fun with photography. If you happen to be a fan of some of the vintage M42 mount lenses like I am, I have a few of my collection here of M42 glass, and particularly some of the Takumars or Helios lenses. There's a lot of fun vintage lenses that are available for pretty inexpensive prices. But today I'm here to talk to you about an adapter from Vello, which I think is really incredibly clever. For the very reason that it really opens up the scope of what you can do with any particular lens. So one thing that is true of a lot of these vintage lenses is that while they can really actually produce some stunningly good images, often really good color, maybe some unique rendering to them, what many of them are not particularly good at is getting up close to things. They don't have a very great minimum focus distance. You know, for example, if you take a look at this lens, this is a Super Takumar 150 millimeter f4 lens. And so the minimum focus distance, as you can see from this shot, is only 1.8 meters, more than 6 feet. And so end result of that is that it really does not have a very good reproduction ratio. So this particular adapter is, while it allows you to have typical infinity focus, and so it's designed for Sony FE, and so it allows you to adapt M42 lenses to Sony, of course, so far pretty basic there. But what is unique about this particular lens, adapter I should say, they call this an LA to NEX M42 to M. So what this is it's a M42 lens mount to Sony FE mount, except for it adds on a macro component. Now, what do they mean by that? It's really actually pretty straightforward. What you've got in this particular adapter is essentially the equivalent of a number of extension tubes that are built into it. And what I mean by that is that here you have an actual, it looks like a focus ring, but what it actually does, as you can see, is that it is changing the distance from the lens, so the lens is mounted up here on the front, changing the flange distance from the lens to the sensor itself. So what happens is as you move that lens further and further away from the sensor, what you're doing is you're actually minimizing the minimum focus distance. And so whereas this lens that I've got on here right now, which is an SMC Takumar 55 millimeter f1.4, it actually has a minimum focus distance of 0.45 meters or 1.5 feet. So it's got a so-so reproduction ratio, probably about average 0.15, 0.16 times. But as you can see from these images that I'm about to show you, once you begin to use this particular adapter, all of a sudden you can really produce some pretty amazing macro type images out of it, and really getting down to 1.1 or 1-to-1 reproduction ratio levels. So it's really quite impressive. And the great news about this is that you're talking about an adapter that right now at B&H Photo costs you 40 bucks. And so for a relatively inexpensive price, you're adding on all of that versatility. And the great thing is that if you fully retract this adapter, it functions just like any other adapter in that you have full access to full infinity. You don't sacrifice that, but what happens is if you're up close to something, you have the ability to move the lens forward relative to the sensor and thus introduce a whole new macro range relative to that. And so, if you're someone that maybe is on a limited budget and you've got some of these lenses and you want to just increase the flexibility of what you can do with them, this is a pretty cool adapter right here because it gives you a whole other range of photography possibilities out of some of your vintage lenses. Some lenses are going to be better than others depending upon how sharp they are, and obviously if they start off with a relatively decent reproduction ratio, this is going to make it even better. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight this for you because it's something that I've already personally had a lot of fun with. There's sometimes that for whatever reason I'm just in the mood for using vintage glass, and so I'll pull these out. But to be able to have that extra versatility, then of course you add on, I'm using it on a Sony A7R Mark III. So then you have 42 megapixels to work with in terms of, you know, cropping it down even further. So pretty cool. And so I'll show you a few more images here as we roll on out. But also note that if you look in the description down below, I do have buying links where you can go and you can nab one of these. Again, it's really inexpensive right now. It's 40 bucks. And it just gives you a lot of extra life out of some of these classic lenses. I'm Dustin Abbott. You can also find linkage there to follow me on social media. Also now on Instagram if you'd like to follow me there. You can also sign up for my newsletter, become a patron. My new policy for my patrons is I give them a sneak preview of content, often at least a week out before anybody else sees it, a chance to interact, ask questions, all of that. So that might be of interest to you. And of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.